Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Mayor Mark Luttrell and the County Commission on budget, taxes, and more tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, publisher of the Memphis Daily News. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Shelby County Mayor Mark Luttrell. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. How are you, Eric?
Good.
Good to see you.
Heidi Schaefer is with the Shelby County Commission. Thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me again.
Steve Bazer, also with the Shelby County Commission and chair of the Budget Committee. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Bill Dries, senior reporter with the Memphis Daily News. Where are we in the budget season? For those who maybe aren't following as closely as we all do, as Bill certainly does, we're looking at some sort of tax decrease and questions about spending and debt. And I'll start with you, Mayor, your take on where we are in the budget process and the direction that the county is taking.
Well, first of all, I think it's very timely that this showing is when it is, because we're right in the midst of our budget season in county government. And I'd start off by saying that the fiscal health of Shelby County is strong. We're paying our debt down progressively. We're right at the $1 billion mark, so we've been able to pay our debt down by some $800 million over the last few years, and that's always good news. Our property values have improved over 4 years ago. So there's some things that we're doing quite well here in Shelby County. There still are challenges that we have, and each year when we go through the budget season, I think it's healthy for us to have a very, very healthy dialogue as to what our priorities are and where we want to go from here. So this is a busy time for the County Commission and for us as we kind of navigate the challenges that we have as a county, and certainly be appreciative of the progress that we've made.
Yeah, and I'll turn to you. You're head of the, as I said, the Budget Committee.
Yes.
You all in committee this last week. We're taping this on Thursday. You're moving towards a tax rate, the adjusted rate after the reappraisal, and the state sort of says, look, you can't have a windfall. That whole thing that we've talked about went from 431 down to 413.
437.
437
down to 413.
Okay.
And so the 413 is what's the certified tax rate, which is essentially the state approved and said, you know, you can't take a windfall from a change in the property tax value, so 413 is sort of the base value. On the county commission, we've talked over the years of trying to get a little bit of a tax reduction and give some money back to the taxpayers, and so we looked and took an opportunity to kind of take the tax rate down to $4.10 from 413, so that's a 3-cent reduction from, you know, what parity would have been.
Yeah, okay. Heidi Schaefer, your take on this.
Well, so I've been actively and like a broken record talking about needing a tax decrease for the past 7 years. And so I think it's the right direction to go, particularly because, and in large part due to the good management of Mayor Luttrell's administration, we have actually been able to kind of right ourselves. When we came into office, we were not in such good shape. Good fiscal management and oversight has led us to a place where we've even started developing some surpluses. We went through the whole school merger, demerger piece, and we weren't sure exactly how much that was going to happen. So I think what we're looking at right now is just trying to right size the tax rate to fit what the reality is of the school systems and the way it is with the breakup, you know, with the municipalities moving off. So we're looking at right sizing.
Right, and we'll talk more deeply about the schools, but schools make up what? I mean, 65% of the budget or more? I mean, is that?
When you add in the debt, yes, about 65% of the budget.
Okay, Bill.
Mayor Luttrell, should the county have a tax rate of $4.10? Can you afford a 3-cent
Well, I think
tax
we
cut?
go into every budget season trying to see if we can have a tax cut. We're in the midst of it now, and certainly the action that was taken by the commission yesterday is a step in that direction, but there's still some questions that have to be answered about our budget as we're going forward. I'm a little bit concerned about how we got to the 410 yesterday, because essentially what we did is we kind of created debt to pay down the tax rate. With some money that we were hoping to really use toward pay-as-you-go capital improvement. That seems to be off the table at the time. I'm hoping that we might be able to revisit that particular issue, because that when you start CIP projects. You're running up debt, which cost our taxpayers money in debt service. And what we were attempting to do was to set aside some money that we could use as pay-as-you-go, so that we would not have to incur the additional debt. So there's some questions there about how we can get to that 3-cent reduction without incurring additional debt.
Commissioner Baser, when we talked several weeks ago, which is a lifetime in these matters in terms that you said the 7 votes were not there for a tax cut. How many votes did you have in Budget Committee this past week for the 3-cent?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Bill. We had 6 votes, and so it just worked out that in the committee, and it was the early morning, and the Budget Committee meets first, and so we had 6 votes. It's 6 Republicans who were there, and there was some debate around the table of, well, I can't support the tax rate as it is. I'd like to see a reduction, and so we kind of went around the table, and everybody was saying they were going to abstain, and Commissioner Schaefer was bold enough to say, well, okay, I'll entertain a motion to reduce the tax rate, and so we all just said, well, in a way, let's see if that works, and so we said 410, and I kind of thought that was a number that we could get to in terms of looking at the CIP pay-as-you-go line item, and if we took that out, that would pay for the 3-cent reduction in taxes. And so that was sort of how we aligned on that. Again, that was just committee. The full commission's going to vote on it Monday.
On first reading.
On the first reading, and there's 2 more readings, so a lot of things can happen.
We're a few meetings away from this being final.
Yeah, the final vote on the tax rate won't be until July, because we have to wait until the end of June, and it has to be the first meeting in July. And so we've got 3 readings, so there's going to be another couple meetings of the Budget Committee. So we'll see. Yeah. I think there's a will on the body, at least 6 votes to have a lower tax rate. If we can pick up 1 more, then that's great.
It's 7 necessary to have.
We need 7
to pass. Okay. Bill.
So Commissioner Schaefer, in your proposal, were you looking at the 3-cent pay-as-you-go provision in the mayor's proposal? Was that what drew you to that number?
No, I was looking at the tax decrease because I think because we have the largest, the highest cumulative tax rate in the state of Tennessee. My constant refrain that if we're going to compete, we've got to drive down our tax rate. And so I'm very open to how we get there, but I am very much like a broken record that I think that we absolutely need to do it. So I'm very willing to work with the different sides to figure out how, but I think we've got to get it done.
And Bill, I would say that we can get there. We can get there. And that's why I hope that over the next couple of weeks that we can sit down and say, okay, if we can't cut it here, can we cut it over here?
Mm-hmm. And you think 410 is doable? The 410 is
I'm
doable.
sorry.
You think the 410 tax rate is doable with
yes.
some more?
Yeah,
okay.
I think with the right discussions that we can make some progress there.
And how much is a penny on the tax rate? How much revenue?
1.7 million.
Okay.
Okay. So it goes for every penny into. Okay. All right. When you say, and then we come back to Heidi. When you say pay as you go, for people who aren't, again, we get sort of deep in the weeds here. You're saying that $6 million in pay as you go money for people at home. That's more like you have. Well, there'll be a lot of money in your checking account, but $6 million in your checking account to pay for things as they come up versus borrowing to pay for those things.
Simply means you pay cash instead of put it on your credit card.
That's what you're talking about. Okay. Okay. In terms of back to you with the tax cutting, where I mean, there's expenses. We've talked about the tax side. No one likes to pay taxes. Everybody wants lower taxes. There's these arguments about, as you just brought up, the tax rates in Nashville and other areas being so much lower. But there is spending that goes with that, and I don't think anybody wants to go into deficit spending and so on. What spending can be cut, from your point of view, to continue to reduce the tax rate?
Well, and thank you. That's a great question because that's exactly what we're talking about is we are in the enviable position now of coming up fairly regularly with some surpluses each year, and with the property values finally rebounding from 2007, 2008, we're going to be in a pretty good position. So, and there are always ways to be smarter with how you spend your dollars and to cut. My main concern with what the mayor is proposing is that the way they've got it lined out is it would be collected specifically for CIP dollars, and so I believe that it's going to create a new mandatory restricted allocation for that, and I want a little more flexibility with that, because oftentimes when we need some money to spend for something, we're told, oh, you can't do that because CIP restrictions are so heavy, and sometimes there are smaller projects that we need that don't fit the technical definition of CIP. I want that flexibility in there.
Okay. What is the CIP budget this year? I'm pushing on the spot, give or take.
The budget, well, we've amended the budget a couple of times, so I'm not really sure.
Okay.
For 2017, it might be in the $50 to $60 million range.
Okay.
For 2018, the next fiscal budget, we just increased that, so I think we're probably close to, might be close to 100 million.
Yeah. Okay. I think much of that going back to schools. Okay, is that correct?
Yes, 54, probably 60 million of that is going to be for schools, and I think when we're talking capital and CIP budget, I think it's important to understand that over the past 5 years, we really haven't been funding at the level that we budgeted.
Yeah.
You know, we were originally budgeting 75 million a year towards the schools. I think we spent 75 million in total over the last 4 years.
Why is that?
Well,
I'm sure some people listen to that and they think, oh, great.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do, and the administration was very wise in paying down the debt. So by us not taking on additional debt and not doing capital projects, we were able to pay down the debt, pay down the credit card.
Okay.
But now we're kind of bumping up against this point where there's a lot of deferred maintenance, if you will.
Okay.
And really, the list now is becoming quite large. We're proposing to replace the health department's building. The juvenile court came to us yesterday and they were talking about they'd like a new juvenile detention center. Regional 1 has been talking about we'd like to replace the hospital. And then on top of that, you've got Shelby County Schools saying we got $500 million in deferred maintenance.
Right. And capital projects, so I'm clear to everybody. I mean, this is roofs, this is new buildings, this is roads,
Yes.
this is the kind of the infrastructure type things that we think of, not the salaries for administrative officials, for sheriffs, and so on.
Correct.
Just so people are clear on that.
And Eric, one of the things that I think the mayor has been wise in doing, and I think that we're about to move into it, is it used to be before that when we issued capital to schools, we just kind of issued it based, again, on a lump sum. They would ask for this amount and we'd give it to them. And then we have found that sometimes that money would sit there over in their account and nothing would happen. They'd come to us and say, oh, we've got to have it, we absolutely need it. And then it would be years and the money wouldn't be spent. So what the administration has told me that they're looking to move to is more of a, we'll release the money to you project by project as you're going to need it, and the bills are actually coming due. And I think that is a really, really good way to handle it, and part of the mayor's administration's commitment to continuing progress.
Yeah.
Eric, what we try to do is during the budget season is set aside some money for capital improvement, and then as the various organizations have expenses, then they'll bring it back to the commission to get that second approval. So there's really two bites at the apple in the whole CIP process. There's the original allocation, and then there's the comeback for the ask.
It is the unspent. I mean, I'm not going to hold anybody to the exact numbers, okay? But just in general, is the unspent allocation of school money, is that Shelby County school system that's not spending it, or is that also the suburban schools, or is it a mix?
We allocate based upon the Shelby County school system, and then on an ADA basis, we fund the municipal schools.
Right, based on a number of students.
Yeah, so really it's the budget
Average
of the
daily
Shelby
attendance.
County school system that really drives the amount of money that the suburban districts receive.
Again, putting you on the spot, is it the Shelby County school system that is not is not spending the money it's allocated, or is it all of them not always spending what they were allocated?
Well, going back,
Shelby County.
yeah,
It's been Shelby County.
Yeah.
going back to what Commissioner Schaefer was saying, that there was a period there of about 5 or 6 years where the whole school system was just in a state of flux. And
Yes.
we all
We did
wisely
one or two shows on that.
we wisely said, let's let the dust settle on the school system, and then once they have decided the direction they want to go, then we will get back into the CIP business, and that's what Commissioner Baser is referring to.
Okay, Bill.
And we're now at that point.
Right.
We're actually on several fronts, I think, at a really transition point, and one of the other points is the paying down of the debt. So we hunkered down during the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, and now we've come out of that. But I still hear a lot of caution as we emerge from that, even though things are much better than they were, for instance, with the last property reappraisal. So how much from the administration standpoint, Mayor, have you looked at your strategy then and said, okay, we can do this now, we can do that now, we still need to remain cautious?
Well, I think budget discipline requires precisely what you talked about. You've got to certainly consider the needs of the moment. But the way our CIP program is set up, it's really set up on about a 5-year plan. And we try to stay faithful to that. But the idea is to if you want to build some schools, let's get it in the budget far enough in advance so we can kind of see how that progresses in the years to come. So CIP is very well thought out. And then as far as just budget in general, I always say you got to look at a budget from a tactical standpoint and a strategic standpoint. The strategy is what do you see down the road, and how do you plan for that possibility? And then tactical is what must be dealt with today. So we try to have that discipline. The Commission's done a great job in working with us and trying to strike that balance. And that's where we have our job cut out for us when it comes to reviewing budgets and reviewing requests from the community.
Mr. Chairman, the County Commission is a legislative body, a different role, a different part in the process. How do you view the transition that we're in coming out of the recession to what seems to be a more stable economic time?
Well, right, from a budget perspective, it's, you know, we are in a better position. The property tax values now are rising. We see some development happening around the city. It's very encouraging. I mean, in my district alone, I see a number of different projects that are happening. And so we know the tax base is growing, and that's what we want to see. From a looking forward perspective, I think we're going to have some tough decisions in terms of capital projects. You know, the schools are wanting to rebuild a lot of their buildings, and, you know, without getting too far into it, from a capital perspective, with the Shelby County schools that we have now, we've sort of flipped the way it used to work. So the way it used to work, the Shelby County was in charge of the municipalities, what are now municipality schools. And so when new schools were being built in Arlington or whatnot, because of ADA, we had to give money to what was then Memphis City Schools. So now it's the other way around. Memphis City Schools is now Shelby County Schools, and what was Shelby County Schools is now the municipalities. And so when we give money to Shelby County Schools, we ADA a portion of that to the municipalities.
Yeah.
And so it's, in a way, we're now in a much better control position, because what Memphis City Schools did before was they had so much money they didn't know what to do with it, and they spent unwisely. They spent poorly. They built too many new schools in neighborhoods that were on the decline, and we've actually shuttered some of them, or considering shuttering them. And so now we need to have a more thoughtful process, and that's where the Commission can control the capital spending of the schools to a certain degree on approving the projects and saying, okay, we want to continue to see schools close and consolidate and be more efficient.
And do you like the path that the Shelby, I'll turn to you, do you like the path that the Shelby County school system has been on? I mean, certainly the first couple of years that the, consolidation, deconsolidation, everybody kind of made it up as they went along. I mean, that's a little too flippant, but that first year, we've had a lot of the superintendents on, and they really were just kind of figuring this out. Now we're, as Commissioner Baser said, we're a number of years into it. I think Shelby County Schools came this year with, there wasn't as much drama around their budget as there's been in the past. Is that right? There wasn't as much asked for more money. There was some criticism of Dorsey Hobson that he wasn't asking the superintendent for more money, right?
Well, yes, and some of that's being driven in reverse, because they actually have a fairly good reserve fund, and they had some thoughts about, well, why don't we spend down into our reserve more, because they don't need to have reserves in there for they don't have bond ratings and that kind of thing. Right. But when they talked about doing that, then there was some pushback from the municipalities, because they're saying, hey, if you don't ask for money from the county, then we won't get any piece of it. So, it's the way government works. And what I wanted to just mention, because Bill, you rightly said that the legislative and executive branches have different roles, and sometimes when people watch us debate, and and you know, we're pretty passionate people, all of us, and we believe strongly in our duty. And so sometimes it can look kind of inelegant when we do it because it looks like we're arguing, and we are. But it's very, very important, and it's how our system was set up. And because we're doing this all in the sunshine, no backroom shady deals.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a smooth process as if it's all done and decided behind closed doors so everybody comes out with a unified answer. And I think as inelegant as it is, I think it's right.
Yeah. Let me, before I go back to Bill, we'll stay with the schools for a second. I'll just put this, if anyone wants to touch on this. I said there's no drama about the school's budget. That's true. There's obviously a huge drama with the transcript questions and the investigation at Trezevant. A lot of unanswered questions. You all fund. I mean, you fund the schools. I mean, should you have a say in what happens? Are you just watching closely with what goes on? Does anyone want to respond to that?
Well, first of all, the way that education funding is designed in Tennessee, we are the funders, but we really have no input into the operation.
Correct. Right. When you see something this explosive,
but I contend because we are the funders, we have every right to ask tough questions.
Okay.
And to really, as Commissioner Schaefer said, we get it out in the sunshine so we can see it. So I think it's very appropriate, and I would take a very strong stand that anytime you have an incident like the Trezevant incident, it needs to be fully aired out.
Yeah.
And I would encourage the school system in the spirit of transparency to do that.
I would agree with that. I mean, when I look at something like that, I think of my business background. And you know, if you have a defect in your manufacturing process, for example, you want to find out what caused it and why, and make sure it's not repeatable. And then you want to make sure that it's not happening somewhere else. And so I would hope that this, and I think on the commission, we want to find out what happened, what caused it, how did this happen, and then how we make sure it doesn't happen again, and let's make sure it's not happening other places.
Yeah.
Yes, in fact, I even said something about it in committee when they came up to give us their third quarter report, and I just let them know that I was watching, and I expected a full and transparent process, and that as funders, I mean, I do take that into account with my votes about how that's going to go. And it's not because I don't have faith in leadership, but obviously there is a problem, and I think that problem probably is pervasive in several schools, and maybe not even just with this school system. So it's no knock at all on the folks who are administering, but we need. In the past, I think that the schools were so kind of independent, and they winked and nodded a lot of things that went on. We deserve better, and our kids deserve better.
Bill, can I put you on the spot? Because you'll do it better than me. Just a quick, for those who maybe aren't fully up to speed on what we're talking about, I should have done this in the other order. What is going on at Trezevant and with the school board and the whole investigation right now?
Late last year, the principal of Trezevant High School, Ronnie Mackin, said that he was doing a routine audit, he and his staff were doing a routine audit of grade transcripts and other academic records, and that some of the grades did not match. He took it to Superintendent Hobson's office. Superintendent Hobson immediately announced that the school system had full faith and confidence in Principal Mackin, and announced that the Trezevant High School football team would forfeit 3 games as a result of that. And then that was kind of the end of it. It was thought maybe the whole season would be lost. It wasn't. The school system forwarded this to the TSSAA, Tennessee Secondary Schools Athletic Association. They looked into it, said that they didn't see anything. Fast forward to the last 2 weeks. At the end of the school year, near the end of the school year, the school system announced that it was going to have a new principal at Trezevant High School in the new school year that starts this coming August. Ronnie Mackin announced that he was resigning, and in a 6-page, single-spaced letter, he, in effect, doubled down on the allegations and was more specific about them. And that's essentially where we are.
And right now, where the school board, the Shelby County School, they are starting an investigation.
They are meeting at week's end to talk about this after an attorney-client conference earlier in the week, which was a closed session.
Okay, just a couple minutes. And again, you guys aren't directly, but I think we've given you a chance to talk about that. With just a couple minutes left, the storm aftermath. I mean, we're what, 2 weeks from the storm. Your office, how involved were you? What was the impact? I mean, what's the tally of damage? I mean, what's the outcome
as
from
things are
the storm?
structured? Those events work through our emergency management agency, which is county operated, and Dale Lane and his team have done a great job of pulling together all the constituencies across Shelby County. The figure now is in the range of 20 million. And we're still trying to find that one ingredient or that one piece that has to do with damaged residences that are uninsured.
20 million is what? Is 20 million worth of county-owned property damage?
No, just 20 million across Shelby County in terms of personal property damage, government property damage, overtime pay, all of that collectively.
Commissioner Schaefer.
So because MLGW is a city entity, the County Commission doesn't have direct oversight, and I really just wanted to give a shout out to a couple of my counterparts over in the city, Reed Hedgepeth and Philip Spinoza, who helped me work through, I'm very grassroots, so my constituents call me, and we worked through address by address by address to try to get people's power turned back on, and they intervened, to MLGW, and it's that kind of cross-body, cooperation that just is invaluable to people.
Were you frustrated with MLGW's response?
Oh, well, I mean, nobody wants their power out. I was out about a week, nobody wants their power out. I think there are always room for improvement, but this was so much better than Hurricane Elvis, and where I was out for about 3 weeks, that we're optimistic and we're looking for ways that we can be even better.
And any thoughts on the storm and the aftermath response of the county, or?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I did not lose power. I was a fortunate one.
No, don't say that.
But Hurricane Elvis, I was out for 10 days, and that was kind of rough. But
where we are, we've talked about infrastructure. We've talked a lot about spending. Will the States Improve Act, the gas tax, we just have 20 seconds left, have any impact? Will Shelby County see more money?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And we will.
To the tune of $2 to $3 million.
But that's it.
That just Shelby County government. Now the municipalities also will receive a benefit. So Memphis and then the other 6 municipalities will.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week. Good night.